What's happening, guys? It's your girl Mina. Welcome back to my channel. You already know what it is. Happy Friday. Oh man, I'm so glad it's finally Friday. And of course, I thought, you know what? Let's chop it up with people that you guys keep asking for these two, specifically these two, to come on the channel. So Saeed is basically a regular at this point, but of course, my brother Marcel from United View is here. We got obviously a bit to talk about, some comments from Eric Ten Hag's presser, obviously the Chelsea win. We're going to touch on that, and obviously tomorrow's game and the big one against Bayern Munich and Liverpool. Big up to everyone in the chat. Saeed, Marcel, how you guys doing?
Yeah, good. Thank you. Good. Thank you, man. Bournemouth tomorrow, innit?
Yeah, that's it. We're good. I'm all good. We won against Chelsea, but let's get another run going, man. Let's get another run going, hopefully. But yeah, I'm all good. Thanks for having me on.
We're going to start with, I think, the obvious, which is the elephant in the room is Marcus Rashford. I think you can't talk about United stuff without talking about Marcus Rashford. Obviously, he was dropped midweek when we were on Saeed's channel a couple of days ago. A few of us were saying he's gonna get dropped and he should be dropped. And Ten Hag actually mentioned him in the press conference today. He said, Rashford's an incredible player. He's a good player, but you can't do it with 11 players. He can't play every game. He's not in this moment in the form he was in last year, and I'm sure he'll get there. I've said the same about McTominay and Maguire. It's up to them. The team will always line themselves up, and the best players who form the best team will play. That's what he said about Marcus Rashford. I don't really know how to interpret that. Is that him saying, well, he's given McTominay a chance and he's given Maguire a chance, so he's going to give Rashford a chance to get into form? Or is that him saying that the show goes on with or without Marcus Rashford? I'm going to throw that to both of you lot.
I personally think, for me, he's obviously trying to find the solution with Marcus Rashford, but I don't think bringing him back into the team helps him any shape or form. He needs time to reflect. I think we played better without Marcus Rashford. The wingers, for me, first time I've seen two wingers show the same level of application. Normally, you see the right-hand side's a bit devoid and the left-hand side's a bit better. Do you know what I mean? It was good to see two wingers, like either side, we're penetrating and we're actually trying to show a bit of width on either side. We took it to the left, Garnacho was causing problems for Cucurella. We took it to the right, and Anthony was causing a few problems against Levi Colwell. So, yeah, we were proper balance. The thing is with Marcus Rashford is that I don't know if you've heard it as well. I think he's got illness, so he might not be available for tomorrow as well. But
Out of the squad.
I don't think. Listen, people know my opinion in it with Rashford. Yeah, I think he's an average player anyway. So that's just my own opinion anyway. But the thing is, for me, we can substitute them goals with better performances, better all-round performances with other players. Then we need to spread the goals around the team. Højlund needs to get goals. I mean, Bruno should add more to his locker. McTominay is our highest goal scorer with 5 goals. Anthony score more. I feel like what Ten Hag did is he vacated a lot of his time and effort into Rashford and how we get the best. Look at Weghorst. He came in, he was almost the anchor to Rashford, running in behind, almost that left channel, and he was so successful at that. But at the detriment maybe of the team. I feel like Man United and Ten Hag, he needs to focus on the team and how we are better function as a team. And I think ultimately, listen, people might not agree, but if you have players like Garnacho who may get less GA than Rashford, but are better, technically better in a team and the way they play, I think Garnacho's performances, you've seen it. He's performing now. He's maturing as well, which I think for me is amazing as well. So I look at Rashford and I think for me, yes, he's in bad form. Can he get back to his level last season? Possibly. But at the same time, it's like, how many times can we keep saying this? Oh, Rashford, oh, Rashford. Like, we we have to go on. The team, Man United, needs to function with or without Rashford. That's where I kind of feel.
Marcel, do you agree? Do you agree with him?
Yeah, I agree with Saeed to a degree. I mean, Rashford, we're going to need him at some point throughout the season. So I guess why Ten Hag's been so kind to him in terms of continuously playing him. The stuff about him obviously being injured is a bit ridiculous. Ill is a bit ridiculous. He looked perfectly fine. So
he's saying, I think he's flu or something.
Yeah, I don't quite believe that right now, to be honest with you. That just seems a bit pathetic.
I believe it because everyone's got the flu right now. People have got the flu, so I kind of believe it. Footballers they're not superheroes, they get sick too. They get flus too.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. It's true. I just think the performances, though, we can see by the way he just doesn't want to play for the club. It almost looks like right now. I'm calling this kind of phase, and we've seen this before under Ole, this kind of depression Rashford kind of phrase where he's just really down, just doesn't want to play. So, but Ten Hag's been doing the right thing. I'm kind of a person that believes in playing through form. So, I felt like he'd done the right thing, but that even gets to a point where you have to do something different. I think he has to keep him out the team for a couple of games, maybe till Bayern Munich or so. And like what Saeed's saying, have other players be more functional within the team. But I think he's still very important for the team, So we might have to see him as like a second choice striker, maybe number 9 to Højlund. When Højlund's not playing well, you put Rashford up front because he's given us a massive problem in terms of rest defense or defending. He's not been able to get back in and cover up all the spaces in midfield. So that's a huge problem for us. But I still think he's a fantastic player when he's on song. We've seen it under Ten Hag's principles. He can score 30 plus goals a season. He can still be effective for the club. It's just right now, I don't. It's really, really sad to see. But we're going to need him for the rest of the season. At some point, he's going to have that purple patch.
Saeed, you mentioned obviously Garnacho. I think if once Garnacho fixes his decision making in that final third, I think he'll be great. Do you see Rashford getting that left hand side back? Especially that's his preferred side. He's made it clear so many times that he only likes to play on the left.
The thing is, though, I look at Garnacho now, and people said he wasn't ready, but I feel like with players, you've got to make sure you got to pull them, you got to push them into the deep water, man. You've got to, because you're never going to know what they're capable of doing. And I feel like with Garnacho, we've been putting him around cotton wool, and we're trying to say, he's an impact player. But I feel like for me, we have to test him. And now he's enjoying the responsibility. He's taking players on. He's tracking back. He's running hard. His intensity, his levels are crazy. And you know what? I get it. The end product isn't there as such. But listen, when you look at Marcus Rashford's overall game, though, he's doing things what Garnacho's doing at 18 years old. So I feel like when you look at the both games, I don't think there's a lot in there in terms of maturity. I think Rashford does things that I'm thinking, hold on a minute, you're 26 now. How are you running into people? How are you not filing these runs? How are you not occupying the space? How are you not using your speed to your advantage? Like, there's certain things I'm looking at Rashford thinking, well, Garnacho, if you can get his feet on the ground and you can kind of manage him, I feel like the player Garnacho can become is crazy. And I feel like this is the kind of season where maybe the style of football isn't great. Well, that's my opinion. You've got certain players that have got an X factor. And I feel like with Garnacho, he'd give that people like, you know what? Oh, we're going to look for Garnacho today. He's got that wow factor. He's got that bit of something that nobody else has. So for now, Garnacho holds that spot until Garnacho gets a little bit tired. And naturally, as a young player, it's not tiredness in terms of fitness. It's tiredness in terms of mentally as well, having to play game after game after game. If he has that mental fatigue, that's when I'm like, okay, we need to swap it around now. But until he does that, then for me, Garnacho's got that spot on lock. But that's up to Rashford to play well, not score goals, play well as well. That's what you need to see from him.
Do you think? Because sometimes I feel like in that starting 11, no one's spot is really solidified. Maybe Onana, I would say his spot is solidified. I would say Bruno Fernandes, arguably, sometimes I don't think it should be solidified, but he's maybe one or so players that kind of got that spot. Marcel, there people are. I don't know why people target questions at you in the chat all the time. But Koala says, question for Marcel: do you think Erik Ten Hag's tactics are going to work against the top 9 teams? Because we haven't been able to play well or get a win against them.
Interesting question.
Yes, I do think. I think they're really, really good tactics once you have the players that are able to play under those demands for 90 plus minutes. Sorry, we have to upregulate the squad first before we can even say that his tactics are inferior to the top manager's tactics. They clearly have a better squad. They can call upon 30 players of the highest caliber. We've been proven time and time again over this 10-year period that we can't call upon these players at the highest moments at the highest level. So once Ten Hag flushes all of that, bad deadwood out, that's been, that we've been carrying for like 10 years on astronomical wages, then we'll start to see the fruits of the labor. Ten Hag's putting down these principles with build up and turnovers, and we've seen it suffocate teams or force top teams into mid blocks like against Arsenal, and cause and disrupt really, really well set up teams like Tottenham just for periods and moments. The next stage is to be able to sustain that over 90 minutes, and you need better quality players to do that. Ten Hag's wanted better quality players, but he's been let down by the structure. So we have to wait and see. You have to give that process time, and players are coming back anyway. So you might be able to see the little bit of use case for the players that he has already brought into the squad, because they've been injured. They haven't been able to be together in a team for 3 or 4 or 5 fixtures, because 1 or 2 players always gets injured, or there's a predicament with Anthony, or there's just so much going on and around the club this season. So Ten Hag's been doing a brilliant job, and you can see that with the points in comparison to every single team within the league.
Saeed, do you agree that United are able to do it right now in moments? Because I agree with the moments thing. Call them moments FC, but the manager needs to create a team, I guess, that can sustain it for a 90-minute period. Can he do that against the top 9 teams? I don't think we've picked up points against the top 9 teams yet this season. We've lost to Newcastle, City,
3 out of 3.
Chelsea, but I don't really class them as a top 9 team because they're 10th.
They're top 10. They're not even top 9. That's how bad it is, man. They are so bad. They're top 10. Listen, I feel like for me, people are not going to like what I'm going to say here, but I think there were moments in that game where I watched it back, and I felt, we're still not there, because in that transition, there was a couple of moments Chelsea caught us in behind, and I'm not saying woulda, shoulda, could have, and if, buts, and maybes, but they were very, very big opportunities. Obviously, United could have easily won that game anyway, 7-8-5, because we were dominant anyway. But I'm just saying that I think a better team, we've got to be wary still. I feel like Amrabat in that midfield, I think he was better in the second half than he was in the first. Lindelof was very, very shaky. I still think in that middle, mid block that you're talking about, I feel like that little bit there, we are still vulnerable, because we still isolate the CDM. McTominay's further forward, Bruno's further forward, and then what happens is Amrabat, Lindelof, and Maguire, they hesitate. I think one time Dalot got caught on that side. I don't know if you remember. There was a position where Dalot wasn't even quite sure where to go, and he got caught in behind. So we've got to be wary still, for me, and a better team. That's how they nullify us, and that's why I think sometimes Ten Hag tactics are so baffling, because it's like he almost prepares in one way, and it's like there's no in-game management from him. You get what I'm trying to say? So I feel like for me, the Chelsea game, it worked very, very good. I praised it. I thought, you know what? Our pressing was the best pressing I've ever seen. We literally hounded Chelsea. And listen, people can say Chelsea are poor, but we still have to do that to them. So, yeah, for me, the top 9 record is there, man. It's there to people to see. When we play against better opposition, Ten Hag tactically gets found out. It's facts. I'm not lying to you. It's right there in your face. So now it's time for him to prove that wrong. If he can't, it's all well and good beating the little teams, but when we go against these big teams, bro, man gets found wanting. So we will find out, innit? You know what I mean? Obviously, we've got Villa, we've got Liverpool, we've got I don't know if West Ham are included in that top 9. I don't know where they are. I think they're in the top 9. So maybe they're another one as well. So it's going to be a very, very tricky period. But I just feel like for me, Ten Hag, with the way we're playing right now, the way I see it's not sustainable is because you don't know what Man United are going to get. 1 minute against this, we'll see against Bournemouth tomorrow what United we get. Do we get the same level of pressing that we've seen against Chelsea? Or was it just because of the atmosphere and the way it was, etc., etc.? But we need to see that over the course. Liverpool away, do everyone go back into their shell after 1-0 down? There's still so many questions, you know what I mean? So we got to see what Ten Hag does and how he motivates these players. Because I feel like it's one of them where with these players, they get a bit, when they need to perform, they perform. But when they need to kind of just say, you know what, we can relax today. Everyone's going to blame the manager. That's when you have to be on them. Like, yo, you have to play well. You see what I'm trying to say? So,
Marcel, you laughed when he said that Ten Hag only has kind of sets up for one way in a game and then doesn't have any sort of in-game tactics. It's funny because I feel like we saw it more last season where, that Chelsea game last season, if you remember, everyone was calling it a tactical masterclass because Graham Potter did, made changes early, Ten Hag had to adapt. We were all over Chelsea for the first 30 or so minutes. But I do feel like this season we don't see tactical changes mid-game to kind of change the momentum or change the moment or try like take control of the game. Do you think that is on purpose that the manager is doing it, or do you see it and maybe we're not just seeing it?
So no, I kind of laughed mainly at the fact that he said against the top teams we get found out, and that Ten Hag doesn't have any tactical nous regarding the top fixtures. I think he does. I just think he's and just to the point as well, man. I think he's just very rigid in his game plan. So I do agree with Saeed, and I agree with you as well. Like last season, we were seeing him be a little bit less rigid.
Rigid or stubborn? Rigid or stubborn?
Both sides, both. You know, and that's a difficult way to be, because you can derive success from that once you upregulate the squad. Once you get players that can do his stubborn, rigid way of playing football to the highest level, you start to dominate the top 6 teams or the top 5 teams. And that's just and it's a gift and a curse at the early stages of the process, because he still hasn't got all his players. So I think that's what the issue is right now, really, for me, is that, you know, he hasn't got all his players. So then against City, you only see 20, 30 minutes where Scott McTominay could have bagged 2 goals in 10 minutes. You don't have the quality enough to deliver that for us. And then, you know, he's still trying to play his attacking football against a team that you should maybe respect a little bit more. But that's just how Ten Hag is. I think he's very stubborn. He has one way. Every single game he coaches a win, man. You know, every single game he has an idea.
Every manager does that. Every manager does that, bro.
Yeah,
every manager coaches to win. It's whether you're good enough to implement that and come across with the players. I'm not saying Ten Hag comes into a game wanting to lose, but I say his preparations can be a bit kind of like questionable. His tactics can be a bit questionable. His personnel, when he's picking these situations, can be questionable. You know, the in-game tactics, like I said to you before, they can be. There's a lot of things that I look at Ten Hag, I'm like, yeah, last season was great, but you had to improve. And I feel like this season we are stagnated massively. You know, you can talk about personnel and whatnot, but there are players out there that he's brought in to enable that. You know what I mean? And they're, for whatever reason, not playing, or okay, some are injured. But you know, I feel like for me, it's one of them where we don't quite know what he's really trying to do. And I feel like for me, he's trying to guess it until he makes it. You know, today will be this, next week will be that, and also, have you noticed with Man United right now? It's like we have a few games. We win a few games, we'll probably lose the next 2, etc. And then it's like we're in a crisis and we have to rectify it. Like, not always it's a crisis, but it means like, why do we always have to go back to like square one of, let's back the manager, let's lose. It should be continuity. So I just feel like we're always back to square one, like, but this game will determine whether Ten Hag stays in the job, or this game where it clicks for Man United. Why does it have to click? You know, we're 18 months in now. It shouldn't be clicking now. It should be a continuous, gradual improvement on last season. Is that not fair? That not fair to make?
It is, but it's just the way that you're looking at it. You just don't feel like it is, but it is very much a continuum from last season. Last season, he still had the players playing a certain principle, counter-attack based or similar structures. There wasn't much build-up. You had a goalkeeper that couldn't do attacking principles, so you had to sacrifice a certain degree of how you done your build-up. So we've progressed.
Are you blaming that for last season?
No. Well, for the elements of build-up, yes. For the elements of build-up, in terms
has our build-up improved now that David De Gea has left?
Yes.
No, it hasn't. It hasn't. Nah, not for me. Not for me.
Unfortunately, I disagree. But it has been. It has been. It has been. It really has been, guys. And you'll continually to see that progress once the injuries come back. You know, there's key components. We haven't seen Martinez. So of course,
I agree with that. Yeah, I agree with the fact that Martinez has been out. Obviously, we ain't seen that back line, including Luke Shaw, Martinez, all playing together with Onana. So I understand. I can't really judge too tough, but I can definitely say that we don't play better out from the back. Even though Onana is now, because last season, for example, there was times we saw Maguire, we saw Lindelof, we saw that back line that we're seeing right now. We saw them in some games, if you remember, especially towards the end of the season. And the only thing that's changed now is the goalkeeper, and the build-up is still the same. So clearly, the building up from the back, it wasn't an issue of completely the goalkeeper. Because to be honest, Chelsea game, I saw moments that, you know, Onana played some good passes, you know, it was able to get out of a semi-press that Chelsea were going for, especially in the second half. But I think it's harsh to kind of correlate, you know, David De Gea and building up from the back last season and saying United have improved on that this season, when I haven't really seen it. But then again, to argue the point, we ain't seen Lisandro Martinez play much. We ain't seen him play with Luke Shaw, etc., etc. So I kind of get that. But do you think that, like, to Saeed's point, do you feel like from last season there's improvements made on the style of play? Because I think a lot of people, when they question, the manager, it's about the style of play. It's the style of football. Do you think that there's been improvements on that? Do you see the identity? Is there something that you see that we don't see?
Well, we've tried to. I think the structure was a 4-2-3-1 last season, and we was quite rigid in that respect. This season, he's tried to show more of his style of football. He showed us that he can collect trophies last season and win important football matches. We had Xavi say that Manchester United have changed under this current regime and management. So there's good signs, and I think he deserves a longer tenure because of those good signs. He's tried to go to a 3-1-6. I think Kobbie Mainoo was a massive miss. When you look at our squad in terms of the selection of midfielders, we don't have a really strong single pivot. We only have Amrabat, who didn't have a pre-season and was out for a long time. And Kobbie Mainoo looks perfectly suited for that single pivot, Sergio Busquets type kind of role. Maybe not to that level, but he's very mobile and dynamic for the Premier League at that level. So, we missed him. He was meant to be part. He bullied Declan Rice in the pre-season and played well until he got injured against Real Madrid. We should have had him within that team. And then when you look back to the Wolves game and the Forest game at the beginning of the season, you're thinking, well, my gosh, he would have been able to gauge those distances that Saeed's talking about from the 2 8/10s and the single 6. He would hopefully have been able. And once you get 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games, Mina and Saeed, together, you understand those distances better. I think, as fans and even media outlets have been making Ten Hag aware of this kind of space that's behind, the 2 8s and the 10 and how much we're getting run through. So he's going to make those adjustments. And I think, again, once we get these players all back in, I think the team will start looking better. But there's still deadwood. I think Scott McTominay was surplus to requirements. That's a fault on the board. He was surplus to requirements last season.
He's saving us this season.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. He's Ten Hag's going to keep him now. So what do we say about that then?
About that, do you guys think Maguire and McTominay should be staying?
To the end of the season, yes.
What if Ten Hag wants to keep him? What if Ten Hag wants to keep them too? No.
Well, he's gotten something out of them. I think with Maguire's contract finishes the year after this. I'd rather offload him. If you're going to, rather than giving him a contract extension, I'd rather offload him, sell him for something.
I'd give you any money to give him a contract. If he carries on playing well, they'll give him a new contract. They probably will.
They probably will.
You know what I mean? That's what I'm trying to say. So it's like, where does the book stop? Where does it? You know what I mean? That's what I'm like. Ten Hag, if he has a philosophy, they don't fit into that philosophy. If you're saying what you say, and you're saying proactive football, you play that from the back, and etc. They should not fit the plans. Yes or no, Marcel? They shouldn't, right?
Yeah, 100%. But you go into a season with what you've got, and these are 30 footballers that he starts with. Some of them, he's told them literally that they're surplus to requirements. Just the window just gone. The board have let him down within that structure, and he has to play them. So he's making do with what he's got. Then he has predicaments with other players in the squad. Players are busy playing PlayStation. There's players on poor form. There's players injured. So he has to play those. He has to call upon the players that are available and try and play them within his structure that he had at the beginning of the season, but with different roles and responsibilities. If you had Scott McTominay out, for example, in this exact same structure, and maybe had a Jude Bellingham or a Barella or somebody a bit more of a defensive mindset or the temperament when to go into the half space, when to add themselves into the box, and also when to defend and cover on rest defense, you've got a better structural system, a system that can bully and suffocate teams with our turnovers, which is a clear sign or structure within our team compared to last season. We're more obsessive over them this season when you have the players ready to come and join the team. But we've had that weird balance of injuries, things going against us, all these kind of things this season, which makes it more difficult to really see those kind of foundations that Ten Hag's trying to implement this season.
There's too much stress on injuries, though, for me. I don't know why United fan base, I don't know what it is with me, but there's so much stress on injuries being part of why Ten Hag still doesn't have a consistent style of play. Like, everybody goes through injuries. Guardiola's going through injuries. Every single manager goes through injuries.
I don't think you can compare Guardiola, though, because
Guardiola's got a thin squad. Guardiola's got a thin squad, by the way. Yeah, and I'm talking about Unai Emery's had injuries. Unai Emery's had big injuries as well in his squad. And this is where, for me, it's like, you still can't see the standards fall down as much as they have with 1 or 2 injuries. Like, that's where my kind of like it's too much emphasis on injuries where I have not seen the core principles of what Ten Hag has tried to do. And that's where, for me as a manager, even through the tough times, I want to still see the core principles. I want to still see you doing certain things and whatnot. So, I listen, injuries are a big part in terms of what your manager could do, but one or two players, I'm sorry, man. For me, it's not good enough. United should be still playing a consistent brand of football.
But it's not one or two players that are
It's
out
not
for
one or two,
United.
yeah.
It's Martinez and Casemiro. That's it. Who else?
That's Mason Mount. That's right now. Let's talk about October.
Mason
Yeah.
Mount. Nobody rates Mason Mount here. Nobody rates Mason Mount.
I rate Mason Mount.
Wow.
We rate Mason
Mount.
We want Mason Mount.
Wow.
But one thing I will say is I'm not talking about right now, but last month or 6 weeks ago, September, going into the Arsenal game, United were picking up injuries. You know, if it was not Lisandro
the only injury that I look at that I think is so integral to Ten Hag is, for me, Lisandro Martinez. Everyone else, there could be a situation where you can work around it. There is a situation where you can work around it. Lisandro Martinez is the only person that I've seen from Ten Hag's era where I can see fundamentals of what he tries to do with him. The way he plays out from the back, the way he presses from the front, the way he goes into midfield. Lisandro Martinez is the only one. Okay, Casemiro's, we know, for me, world class. We know what Casemiro's about. You know, we know what other players are about. But Lisandro Martinez has been integral to Ten Hag. I can understand that one player. But everyone else, come on, man. We can patch up and make things happen. You know, so
let me quickly
that's the way I kind of look at
some of these super chats. Axe says Saeed and Marcel, another 7-0 at Anfield. Eric Ten Hag out. Big up to Grace with the super chat, says emergency meeting incoming when we finish 9th. Yeah. Big up to Carlo, been a member for a month. If you lot want to join the membership, you can. It's the pinned comment in the chat. Says, does Anana get high fives like David De Gea did from the defenders? I think he's saying that probably the defenders like David De Gea more. Axe also been a member for a month, says, don't compare the bold fraud with the bold messiah. Ten Hag is wholly incompetent and belongs in lower leagues, not cut from the same cloth. 7-0 to LFC. Okay. Clearly, a few people, Eric Ten Hag out. What I was going to say is about McTominay and Maguire, because United did a clean sweep in it with the monthly awards. Player of the month, manager of the month, and goal of the month. I think goal of the month was inevitable. Is that a trophy? No. Am I still going to celebrate? Absolutely, yes. I'm going to celebrate all the small wins. But talking about Harry Maguire, and Ten Hag was actually asked about them in the press conference today. Do you guys feel like they are do you think that they're an integral part of how the season plays out? Or do you think once there's better available in those positions, they're going to get dropped? So, for example, once, Lisandro Martinez comes back, is it going to be a Maguire and Martinez backline? Is Ten Hag going to revert to the Varane and Martinez backline? Because I think we've seen the last of Varane.
Varane's done. Yeah, Varane's done for me.
But then would that make you question the manager's like man management? Because to be a manager, you have to get on with your players to get the best out of them.
I've been saying Ten Hag's man management is a myth. Ten Hag's man management is a myth. Everybody talks about Ten Hag's man management. I think it's a myth for me. You've got your best defender there, Varane, and you're not playing him. Yes, he's had a few injuries and whatnot, but if Varane tomorrow is available, if Varane don't start tomorrow, then what does that say about the whole situation? So
I generally think we've seen him in Luton game, last Premier League appearance, I think, for United.
Was that his last Premier League appearance?
That's the last time he played in the Prem. He came on for like 10 minutes.
I was about to say, he came off the bench,
Yeah.
Wow.
And his man management is not cool, by the way, guys. Ten Hag has not made a mistake with all his players. He hasn't made.
Did you see what he said about Sancho? Sorry, by the way, last night, the quotes that came out, him talking to United We Stand. He said that he doesn't regret Sancho thing, and and he was asked, if you went back, would you do anything differently? And he said no.
I disagree.
It's been fantastic management from minute one. The way he's dealt with Donny van der Beek, Ronaldo. Maguire's become a man because of how he's been treated. He was surplus to requirements last season, and he had to have some pride in his performance.
Maguire's not become a man. Hold on a minute. Maguire literally knew that United not going to sell him, so he stayed. It's not becoming a man. He stayed.
I think United wanted to sell him.
United wanted to sell him. Yeah, they wanted to sell him.
They just couldn't agree terms.
United wanted to sell him.
He said he never was close to joining West Ham.
There you go. So he was happy anyway. So this became a man. It's not became a man. He knew I'm under contract by United, and I'll probably get my chance. He's living
No,
a dream.
and
Maguire.
I
Yes
disagree
or
with
no?
that. I disagree with that. He was told he was surplus to requirements by Ten Hag, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
On
that
and
one
off
as well.
on and off the pitch, on and off the pitch. That was how I saw it. And there's been a predicament within the team, and he's had an opportunity to go and play almost for pride to this degree, and with Scott as well. For me, they're playing for themselves, how much they care about the club, because they know that Ten Hag, once that we get an opportunity to get better quality in, I think Ten Hag is happy to sell those type of players. Whether it's replaced by another top English talent, which maybe the Sir Jim Radcliffe structure might add in, or a Ten Hag a talent ID talent. Those two players have been at the club for so long, and I've been playing and accustomed to such a different style of football compared to Ten Hag's. So for me, he's become a man. He was under adversity, came back from the adversity, and has shown good performances at certain times. So well done to him. But he needs to be sold immediately, or when is next available.
Do you agree, Saeed, in terms of the man management and obviously the comments that he made about Sancho in terms of
Nah,
not regretting
I
how
don't agree with that.
You and I have spoken about this a few times, and I think he's dealt with it very fairly. But I think people will question why he's fallen out with multiple players over the course
He's got
of
favoritism,
12
man.
months.
Favoritism. It's a lot of favoritism in what Ten Hag's trying to do. I don't think it's been right, man. You know what I mean? It's only now until Rashford he's dropped Rashford. You know what I'm trying to say? So it's for certain other players, they can't do no wrong. But me, I've always said it from day one. The way he's dealt with the Sancho situation has been wrong for me. He should never have came out to the press and said what he said. He should have kept it within in-house and dealt with Sancho 1v1. You know what I mean? And for me, Sancho's got every right to basically say what he's got to say as well. I don't really blame if people say, "Oh, Ten Hag has handled it well." I disagree, but at the same time, people that damning Sancho for backing his own say and defending himself, I don't understand that as well. So for me, I look at the way Ten Hag dealt with that. He comes up to Rashford and says, "Oh, I won't speak to the media about it." But why won't you speak to the media? You never said that for Sancho, did you? So keep it level on all playing fields. That's what I say. Keep it 100 on all playing fields. So I look at Ten Hag, and I think for me his communication is a little bit poor. But then again, that comes across the Dutch way. They're very, very direct. The Dutch people, they kind of say it how it is. Maybe people don't like it, but I feel like for me, especially with people like Varane who have won things and who have been integral to so many teams, have been professional. I feel like sometimes you've got to deal with people in a certain way in it, and I feel like he hasn't done that with Varane. You get me? You can't be mocking him for Johnny Evans on the bench. Come on, man. Deal with people correctly, man. So that's just the way I kind of look at it. For me, everybody's got their own opinion, but I look at the way Ten Hag's dealt with things. Sometimes it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And I feel like maybe he's kind of come across in a bit of a, I don't know, man. It just, maybe people can say it's a bit, you're telling the truth or whatnot, but sometimes you've got to say it in a manner where, you've got to be respectful as well. So, yeah, that's just my kind of opinion. But other than that, Sancho, listen, I'm not vouching for Sancho's been amazing at Man United. He's not been amazing. I'll be real with you. It's not been amazing. But at the same time, what I mean? Them situations could be dealt with in a different manner. That's just the way I kind of look at it in my aspect.
I've seen rumours today that Borussia Dortmund are looking to do a switch for Malin, I think. And Sancho. I don't know how true it is. I think it's being reported in German news. But Marcel, you're shaking your head a bit.
Dodgy deal. You know why that's dodgy? Apparently, it's got the same agency as Ten Hag as well. That's what I'm hearing as well.
Better than Sancho.
Deal, telling you.
Better than Sancho.
He's not better than Sancho, man. He's not better than Sancho.
Listen,
if you watched him, have you watched Malin? Have you watched him?
I've watched a couple highlights. I've seen maybe seen one or two.
Average.
For me, especially, it's more than just the ability. Obviously, especially when we're talking about Sancho, it's more than just footballing ability. Now we're looking at a whole professional. So when you put that into a perspective of, is he a good enough footballer? The footballing ability plus the professionalism plus being able to play under Ten Hag's principles, I really think that's a poor quality player. And when you look at that in that regard, for me, Sancho, over the 2 years, even under Ole and Ralph for his little period then, and then now, he's not even got double figures goals and assist goal contributions. It's been shocking. And then in terms of what you were saying before, I don't know, man. I think Ten Hag is not. He's been fantastic with the Sancho situation. At the end of the day, what era of football did we come from, Saeed? We've seen Alex do absolutely different kind of things, kicking boots at players, getting rid of certain players when regardless of
I
what
think
level
that
they're at.
people always mention the kick and boot thing, but that was accidental. It wasn't on purpose. If you know the story behind it, he was kicking a pile of clothes and the boot was inside the pile of clothes, and it just happened to whack him in the head. It's not like he did it. He didn't pick up the boot and dash at him in the dressing room. But I get your point about Sir Alex Ferguson was ruthless.
The emotion
he
that
had
he shows
merit
there.
to stand on at that point when he booted the boot at Beck's. When was that? 2003, 2004. United won the treble a couple of years before that. Like he had merit. Sir Alex Ferguson had merit. He had respect from players. But I think when you come into a new team and you need to gain the respect of your players, because you ain't just going to gain it straight away. I think there's ways that you handle situations, and players might look at, the Ronaldo situation. Ronaldo, one of the greatest footballers of all time. Forget even just at United, just of all time. Big situation happening with him. Okay, he went to do an interview and, all of that kind of stuff. But then they're looking at him sideways from that. Then Jadon Sancho, who a year before, not even a year, 9 months before that, you were sending him away to train because you were worried about his mental health and his playing ability and all of that kind of stuff. You suddenly just switch up on him. Then Varane, I'm sure players are going to look. How would you feel, Marcel, honestly, if Ten Hag fell out with Bruno today? Would you be feeling exactly how you feel right now that Eric Ten Hag has the right?
Well, it's their favourite.
It depends what it is. I think Bruno, we all know he's not got the temperament yet to be able to control his passing abilities. He's always trying to get rid of the ball so quickly. So if Ten Hag at some stage in Bruno's career, if Bruno has kind of like a next 3 years really to show that. Otherwise he will be moved on. He's about 30 now. So if he can't, as you get older, you get more mature to the game. You slow down your game a bit more. You make correct decisions. He should be maybe somebody next to Kobe and move out the 10 position as Mason Mount goes into the 10 position. So listen, I believe in my manager. If it's time for Bruno to go get moved on because of poor performances or not showing the temperament, the emotional discipline, then he must go.
But don't you think that moving on a player, you should do it a bit elegantly?
No.
Rather than having people... everyone's talking. For example, the Varane situation. If the manager said, Varane is going to be a part of the team, but in the summer they're going to look at options, I think more people wouldn't be questioning that. Rather than why is he suddenly out of the matchday squads? Why is Johnny Evans playing ahead of him? Why is he apparently out sick? And he hasn't played. He hasn't started a game in how many games? That game, I think it was Copenhagen when he came on when Johnny Evans was injured. Him and Ten Hag didn't even talk to each other on the touchline.
He
was taking instructions from the assistant manager. They didn't even look at each other. So of course people are going to speculate that there's an issue going on, and Ten Hag hasn't come out to clear it out either. And
he should, and the club is so massive. So Ten Hag only says that, Sancho, you haven't been playing well in training. That's why I haven't played you in this big fixture against Arsenal. He didn't show the lack of emotional discipline like Sir Alex did, kicking boots at players. He had decorum and just complained when somebody asked him a question and said, "Listen, you haven't been good enough in training." That was all. That's all that it took for a player to come out of their rights and disrespect the manager publicly. It's ludicrous what Sancho has done, and he must be sold immediately for what he's done. It doesn't make no sense. The manager, look at the era of football that we've been watching. Our manager is the one that is the be-all and says-all, and we have to follow his way of football. He has credit in the bank.
Well, the manager could also be wrong.
He has credit in the bank. Look at what he done last season.
The manager could also be wrong, though. The manager could also be wrong, Marcel. But Marcel, the manager could also be wrong, though. You can't just blindly back the manager and everything that he says. He could also be wrong, in terms of his delivery. In terms of what he said as well. He can be wrong. He should not have said what he said, for me, in my personal opinion. But then again, for you're probably thinking, I want hierarchy, I want a leadership group, and that's what you can do. But for me, he created his own problem. That's just my own opinion.
No, I respect that, but I don't think he's wrong in saying what he said, and I don't think that's a wrong thing to say. You're well within your rights as a manager to look at your 30-man squad and say this top player worth 80 million hasn't given you double figures goal contributions in 2 seasons now, wasn't fit and conditioned from the beginning of the season, and that's why he wasn't selected. You're saying that this player needs to be better in training. That's more than fine for me. And that should be allowed. And the player should be able to... I think what Varane's doing is Varane's been keeping quiet and being a professional. And that's what Sancho should have done, kept quiet and be a professional. If there's a disagreement between... And even for Varane, unfortunately, he's getting into that bracket where your body's breaking down too much. He's getting into that Martial bag and where you're not being able, your best ability is availability. And if you can't make that requirement of always being available 70, 80, 90% of the fixtures, you're looking to be sold at some stage and other players might take your place.
Big up to Brio with the super chat. Appreciate it. Says Ten Hag learned lies might work compared to his previous honesty. He shared his view about Sancho face stress at United. It's about narrative currently. Talking about narrative, I think there's a narrative going around about Højlund. Rasmus Højlund still hasn't hit the ground running. 70 million. Are you guys concerned? Are you guys worried? Because, for example, Chelsea game, I thought he could have had a goal. I don't think he's been as clinical as he has been in the Champions League. We know he can score goals. We've seen it already. Even it pains me the fact that the goals he scored is going to be nothing for United because we're going to go out in the Champions League.
It counts for nothing.
It counts for nothing, but at least we know he can put the ball in the back of the net. Do you guys feel like, with the likes of Anthony playing, Garnacho playing, they're always trying to cross the ball in. Garnacho got an assist like that, McTominay. Do you think that Højlund is worrying? He's young, so I don't think we should be too worried. But do you feel worried?
You know what? For me, I think my only worry is his movement in the box is a bit poor for me. He needs to do better. I think his movement is lacking. The way he arrives in the box is always a millimeter, 2 millimeter, maybe slow to anticipate the cross. It's difficult though because you have wingers who want to cut inside. Garnacho wants to cut inside. Rashford wants to cut inside. Anthony wants to cut inside. We don't have really direct wingers that can get the ball first time and get it into the box. So that's the only reason why I feel sorry for him in that sense. But he just looks a bit timid up front. I mean, he's a young player and we're going to give him time. Nobody's writing off Højlund, but he was never going to be, I said it before the start of the season, like he's never going to be our first choice striker in terms of right now. It is a youth project. It's something that is for the future. But I just look at his movement. I just don't think he sniffs out goals. Like, you're looking at McTominay. The reason what Man United are like now is that it allows midfielders to get more goals, but with attackers, he's always looking at, right, are they going to shoot? Are they going to cross? Should I wait? Should I stay? It's that anticipation for me. And that's only my kind of worry. But he is a good finisher. I've got no doubt about that. He is a good finisher. But I just look at his movement. It needs to be better. He needs to be a bit more sharper. Anticipate the cross. Anticipate, right, I'm going to go in now, make that run. But then again, you got wingers who just don't give him the service. They always want to shoot outside the box or they always want to cut in. It's difficult, man. And Bruno's not the same Bruno as before because McTominay is further forward, So it's very, very difficult for him to find space. And I feel like he's always trying to wrestle people, and before even anticipating getting into the box. So I feel for the kid, man. He's got a lot to do. You know what I mean? And that number 9 position is a poison chalice. Like, it's so difficult. Only Ronaldo has scored goals in the last couple of years. Everyone else flops. So I feel for him. I really do feel for him.
Marcel, what about you? Because I know he weren't your first choice striker. Do you have any regrets? Because I remember saying to you that I would have taken De Gea for another season if we took the money for Onana and Højlund and brought Harry Kane. But I think you were always more on the impression that we needed a goalkeeper before we needed a striker. Yeah. So are you worried about Rasmus Højlund? Do you think United will go out and buy another striker?
I think, it would be nice for us to get Ivan Toney in. I think that's the kind of striker that you really need to share the minutes with Højlund. Or, I was always saying, I was one of the first people to say Harry Kane, but unfortunately that option didn't happen. So for me, I think Højlund is a player that, he's got a lot of potential. And I think it's very, very difficult to maybe replace him because I think he needs to keep playing to understand his teammates a bit better. But he's got the back injury as well. I think Rashford is going to have to become second choice number 9 or battle with him for that number 9 position. I think he's lost that left wing now.
Garnacho. What about Martial though?
Oh, it needs to be sold immediately. It needs to be sold as quickly as possible. So
January window, United need to part ways with him because he's only the only other real number 9 United have.
Yeah, but he won't do the dynamic running from the front line. I think you need to just try and get Rashford back into number 39. Rashford under Mourinho, where he's hungry. Yes, it was from the wide areas, but he was very hungry. He would press. He would do his defensive work going backwards. Once we can get that Rashford back, hopefully in the forward line, because I really don't think he's going to be able to remove Garnacho from that spot for the next 10 or 11, 12 games. So, and because like what Saeed's saying, Garnacho is young, so He's going to still have the energy in his legs. It's just that mental fatigue, maybe from having to deliver top level performances game after game. But he seems like he's got that mental rigidity. Like, we've seen him have little situations with Ten Hag before last season. He's got personality about him. So I think he's going to quickly get to that high level. So it's going to be about Rashford hopefully getting minutes in the forward line and Martial being surplus to requirements. He hasn't got the legs to defend, especially that hard rolling that Højlund's able to do in the front line. That's a massive miss when he's not playing in the team. Hasn't been able to maybe find his feet because we can't find him enough in the box. Rashford included, Anthony included, even sometimes and Bruno at times as well, because Bruno's always looking for a wide player. It just needs time to settle and someone to share those minutes with. And I think it will be Rashford to share the minutes with.
It's funny that you say he can't get into the right positions, because the first goal United scored against Chelsea, he was in a very weird, he was at the front post, very far out. Maguire was in a better position for him than him. Sorry, Maguire was one that actually got the shot, that got the deflection, that got the block, and then it kind of fell to McTominay. So Maguire and McTominay were in better positions than he was. And then I think for the second one, he actually kind of dragged away a defender that opened up that space for McTominay to run into. And the difference is, I'm not comparing them at all, but when there's space or when they're anticipating space, McTominay blasts into it. He goes galloping into that space. Whereas Højlund, I don't know what it is. Whenever people are, so if someone's coming, if Garnacho is crossing it from the left, he'll always come to the near post. And if Anthony's crossing it from the right, he'll always come to the near post. And I don't know why he does that quite often. I'm not too concerned about him, but I do think people are going to start questioning it. We're in December. He's got more than double-digit Premier League.
Once the Champions League finish goes, once the Champions League finishes and we're out, obviously it looks more likely that we're going to be out. But once that kind of finishes, that's when everyone's going to be like, hold on a minute, you ain't scored a goal yet, mate. Because the Champions League's over. Can't count Champions League goals. So yeah, man, I want him to do well because he's a promising young striker, but at the same time, I wanted Vlahovic, I wanted other maybe targets in there, but at the same time, we need to back this kid and hopefully it becomes a star for us. But McTominay is our highest goal scorer. That tells you everything you need to know.
That's crazy.
That's why.
That's
McTominay, it's crazy.
Big up to Brio with the super chat, says Højlund dropping Weghorst numbers, little legs. That's actually rude. Talk about the games actually coming up this week. We got. It's going to be a very busy 8 days for United. Bournemouth at home, followed by Bayern midweek, and then the trip to Anfield.
Liverpool.
Marcel, are you confident in Ten Hag setting up the team successfully for all three fixtures?
I'm worried because obviously he, like we were saying before, he's quite rigid in his mindset. So he's gonna have. I don't think he likes to respect the opposition. That Liverpool game, we were in it until half time. And then the team capitulate because they can't play under those demands for 90 minutes. Under uncomfortable environments. But it wasn't. It was like a capitulation. It was like a second half capitulation. Even against Man City, every single time Ten Hag plays, he sets us up with a plan of winning the game. He doesn't, sometimes you can see like under Mourinho or something, it's shut up shop, make sure we don't lose. Whereas, with Ten Hag, his thought process is how do we win? And because he doesn't have all the players that are able to make him derive to that win, or he doesn't structure us in a way that respects all the players' abilities within the team, it's more about his system. Sometimes you get these freak results, but if you're looking beyond those freak results, he's setting up the team with the right principles. It's just all the attributes are not there. So against Bournemouth, considering that, I think you can win that game player for player. We have the ability, and our style of football should be able to suffocate them. I would say maybe we could see moments against Bayern Munich and moments against Liverpool, but if he doesn't, maybe stick like how he was last season with his counter-attacking principles, it will be extremely different games away from home, especially to Anfield. And I think Bayern Munich, he's got maybe a free hit. I would like to see him rotate the squad as well, something that he suffers with as well. In-game management, I agree. He's really poor in-game management, and he's really poor at rotating. So if he can maybe do those things, hopefully we can have successful games, maybe against Anfield, but definitely not Bournemouth, and definitely not Bayern for me.
So you think? Do you feel optimistic for Anfield game?
Yep, definitely do. It depends. It depends how he sets up, of course. But I do feel optimistic for that. And then Bournemouth, I think, should be a win. It's going to be the Bayern Munich one where it depends how he approaches that one. Whether he just thinks it's a free hit and I rest up the players for Liverpool, or if he tries to go for it, which I don't think he would. I do think we're out of it, and it will benefit us if we're just out of the Champions League and Europa League, because then we can try and make
This will be a
go on.
clip this year, but this will be a typical week for Man United. Everyone saying last night on Twitter and social media, United are back and da. We beat Bournemouth. We get a reality check against Bayern Munich. Then we get beat by flipping, what's his name? What you call it? Liverpool. And then it's must-win game against Aston Villa. And then it's kind of almost like, you know what I mean? It's that you see how Man United is such a roller coaster in terms of emotions, because we just don't have a consistent style of play. If I could say to you, right, we're gonna get this performance and we're gonna get that performance, but we don't know what our next game's gonna be like and what that game's gonna be like. You just don't know. We're always fearing the worst and hoping for the best. That's what life is like at Man United right now, literally. So
going into those games, who do you think is confirmed who has to play basically those games? Who's important or integral to getting results?
Bruno Fernandes is vital to getting results for Manchester United Football Club.
But how has Bruno performed? You know, when you talk about, let's talk about the top 6, for example, yeah? Has Bruno ever put in a 10 out of 10 performance against a top 6 team away from home? Forget even at home. Away from home.
That's it. That is Bruno's biggest critique and his worst point. I think we were saying it last season, Mina. You know, he against the top 6 is where he crumbles. We can blame that on his personality and the quality of our squad. I think has something to do with that as well. You know, you're just as good as all the players. It's not a single person game. You just heard that from Ten Hag's mouth himself. So, you know, I would blame a little bit that on the quality around him of players. But he needs to start showing up in the top 6 game or with teams that we would like to think of in the top 6. And I know you mentioned at the beginning of the show that, you know, Chelsea are not in that caliber, but I would say that they are in and around that bracket of a top 6 team, which he's shown up. That's the first time I've really seen him do it. So, you know, for Bruno, his next level is trying to be as good as captain as possible, which means carrying your team in big moments. He's done that. Burnley and Fulham, they're lower teams, but can he now convert that into the higher teams? And I think against Chelsea, with all that millions and all that billions, he's done well, man. And let's see if he can do that against Liverpool. Let's see that if he can do that against Bayern. These are his tests.
I always feel like Bruno's the first one to lose his head in the games against the top 6 when it's not going our way, and you know, you leak 1 goal and then 2 goals and then the 3rd goal comes. I always feel like Bruno's the first one to lose his head every single time, especially in the Liverpool performances. You know, 5-0, 7-0. I can't even believe I'm saying those scorelines out loud. That sounds ridiculous, but 5-0, 7-0. I remember it was always him first losing his head. His head's gone hot. You know, United's down.
He's petulant. He's petulant, man. He's petulant. He just doesn't like when he doesn't get his way. That's what he does. He moans a lot. So we'll see. Let's see if he can break that record. I personally think we won't, but we'll see. We'll see.
Quick predictions before we kind of wrap it up. Bournemouth tomorrow. I'm expecting a 2-0, a 3-0.
Yeah, that's exactly what I said.
Bournemouth are missing a few players.
They're on form, you know.
Yeah,
they're on form, you know, Bournemouth. Who they missing?
I think they're missing a few players out to injury. I saw that online. Let me double check. Who are they missing? They're missing Tyler Adams. They're missing Aaron. They got a long injury list. They got like eight people on their injury list.
But they're still doing well. They're not complaining.
They're still doing well. I think they're in form. I think they're in form. Let me quickly just look at their last few fixtures, just to double check. They beat Palace, they drew to Villa, and then they beat Sheffield United, and they beat Newcastle as well. And then they held 6 against City. And then they held 6 against City. So they've got the last 5 games. They got 3 wins, a draw, and a loss, which is actually not that bad. One of those coming against Newcastle, a team that absolutely battered us. But what do you think, Marcel, in terms of tomorrow's game?
3 or 4-1 United. 3 or 4-1. I think, you know, we're starting to get into that groove now where that turnovers look like, as long as it's set up in a certain way, we suffocate opposition in their half, and we try to be dominant in their half. So that should, you know, give us a lot of opportunities in front of goal now. Just on a side note, completely outside of this game, I think Ahmad's back. which is good signs for us, man. That he's going to look like
back
a
in
new
training,
signing. Yeah, he's back in training. So I think like he's going to look like a new signing over the next few, 10 or 12 games up until January or, mid-January. So that's a good sign for us, man. And I'm really looking forward to see him. But against Bournemouth should be a nice, comfortable win, showing again that we can show some consistency in the type of performance that we delivered against Chelsea.
Big up to Keegan with this super chat. Super chat says, now Marcel was dropped on his head as a baby. Listen, you guys, you don't have to agree with Marcel's views, but don't come for him. Come for his opinion. Don't come for him. Come for his opinion. Please. But big up to everyone, obviously. Shout out to Saeed and Marcel for stopping through. Be sure to hit the like button, guys, on your way out. You lot know the rules. You can join the membership club. It's the pinned comment in the chat. You get badges, you get emojis, you get a lot of member-only custom content. And guys, be sure to subscribe to my Twitch. Link in bio. I do gaming streams every night on Twitch. So if you don't want to talk about football and you just want to talk about gaming, come over there. We'll be back tomorrow. I'll be back here tomorrow, of course, after the Bournemouth game, where we'll talk about the result. Hopefully it will be a win. Big up to Saeed, big up to Marcel, and big up to everyone for sticking around.
The video.
Run up the likes, guys. If you want to see Saeed or Marcel back, run up the likes. It's as simple as that, guys. Until next time, as always, it's your girl Mina, guys. Peace.
Peace.